within seconds, Gemini had pulled the email out of Gmail and summarized exactly what it was about and said, would you like to send a reply?
Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Fritz, and I'm joined with my co-host, Dan Schnurbusch. Dan, what's going on today?
Morning, John. Just, we're rolling up on Christmas just ridiculously fast. Like, it feels like it comes faster every year. Like, I don't know about you, but it's like, oh my, I feel like we were just singing Jingle Bells not that long ago, and here we are again. But so we've been baking lots of cookies and just getting ready and wrapping presents, and so it's been a very festive time of year. How about yourself?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The Christmas holiday is my favorite part of the year. There's just the excitement in the air. The kids are super excited about everything, and I usually wait till the last minute to get my shopping done, and I'm like, I'm a week out now, or we're about a little less than a week out. I'm like, everybody needs to send me their lists. I need to like get serious here so I can make sure that I have stuff in hand. So,
Yeah,
um,
have staff Christmas presents this time around. I'm trying to be a little more. I found out one of my team members is a gift giver. Like, that's her love language, and she gives these fantastic gifts. And I refuse to be. I don't know if there's any choice in it, but I refuse to be completely outshone in that regards. And I have to think of something good, and it is tricky sometimes, but we're having we're doing good. I've been breaking into one of my presents from last year, which is a 3D resin printer. I don't know if you've ever gotten into 3D printing at all, but we started looking at it like 2 years ago, and it's a lot of fun finding all the little things you can print out, especially with the kids, and they get excited. You print them out a little guinea pig or something, and they're like freaking out all day long. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So
I have
it's
not,
been,
but it's funny you say that because I was actually looking at some 3D printing stuff last week, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. I think the kid, like I said, for the kids to be able to say like, hey, let's, one of my kids is really into art and and design and stuff. So I think that'd be really cool to design something and then print it and into form. So
yep, a lot of fun stuff there. So, um, back to tech in the world of technology, we've got a lot of things going on. As usual, it has been a crazy couple of weeks as far as hot things rolling off the press. I know last time we were talking about the launch of O1, and OpenAI has continued to release, major new stuff. Their new projects feature for tracking, like, ongoing projects within their system, and they've launched a couple other neat things. And Google came hot off the press or a few days ago with their Gemini 2.0 launch, which is genuinely excellent. Like, they came out hot. This new system can read you can share your screen and like just hang out throughout your workday and just like chat with the AI as you're going. And it has almost perfectly real time latency. So like, you're just like, hey, what's on my screen right now? Can you tell me how this button works? Or, how should I improve my writing here? Or what,
and so
and
it's
just
reading,
like
it's
chatting
like it's digesting all of the information on your screen and then being responsive to it like in real time.
instantaneously. It is absolutely wild. So like, it's like having a person sitting over your shoulder. I was playing with it a little bit before we went on air, to get a hang of it through their developer portal. Um, and they finally launched like what is it? A Google, what are they calling it? Google AI Studio developer. I don't know how long this has been out. Their developer portal, similar to the way Claude and OpenAI have or
Yeah.
Anthropic and OpenAI. Um, so now you can get in there through Make and Zapier if you want to try out using a new model through your automations. But that's the coolest thing, is that you can plug right into your into your desktop. I'm blown away.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of that. I think that is where we're progressing, when it comes to AI and, that bot assistant where you can say, "Hey, go grab," search my computer and grab the last template for a letter to the court and, edit it and insert the filing information, right? All done via verbal commands, right? But
Yeah.
here's my kind of my hesitation, and it always goes back to the data and privacy issue, right? I'm like, when it comes to having that, I mean, I would wanna know where's my information going on my desktop? I mean, obviously, we're both lawyers that run law firms, right? And there's so
Mm,
much confidentiality and attorney-client privilege and all this stuff that's really important and that's
mm,
sacred. And most people don't have those issues. They might have confidentiality issues, right, when it comes to certain things. But I'm always curious on where the data is going, how they're using it, and making sure that there's a really strict firewall of no no one else has access to it because that would be a breach,
yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, I mean, we use Google Workspace as our main, like, backend, so our document storage, email, all that stuff. So I know they already have, all my stuff, so I don't know exactly what the implications are of Gemini,
yeah.
also having access to it.
I mean,
I
well,
have
one would think that they would build in these security protocols just like they do in all their other, online platforms that you can put data into, right, that has access to it. But, that's just always my first question when it comes out with a new product is
oh,
like, "Hey, what's the data procedures? What's the privacy policy? How do we control that?" And then
yeah.
once I feel comfortable with that, it's like, "Okay, then we're off to the races with everything." So,
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool stuff though. What was it? The other thing that I found out over the weekend is if you're a Google Workspace user and you have Gemini enabled, some of those features that you were just describing hypothetically already exist. I was messing with it on the phone and I was like, hey, can you find this email that I was sending with or that I had with so and kind of summarized it for me. And like within seconds, Gemini had pulled the email out of Gmail and summarized exactly what it was about and said, would you like to send a reply or something like that? I can't remember exactly what but, right there in the little chat window, it made finding that sometimes it's hard to find emails, like, you're like, "Oh, who what was that what was I saying in that? I don't remember exactly," and the keyword search doesn't work because
yeah.
you'll remember exactly the words that you used, or it'll return 1,000 emails, but when you're using natural language, it's a lot easier to find stuff. It's like, "We were talking about X, and I need you to find that," and one of the beauties of natural language search, very, very cool stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I'll give you an example that just popped in my head of, just a quick use of AI in the real life, right? In real world scenario. I was in St. Charles, probate court last week on Friday for a claims hearing. I was representing the estate and, I'd pulled up Eleanor on my phone because I usually have some materials, in case somebody actually does show up to the hearing and I need to actually, you know, try to get the case dismissed or the claims dismissed. And, but I didn't print out my stuff. So what I did was I just got my cell phone out when I was in the lobby of the probate court before I went into the courtroom. And I just pulled up Eleanor on my phone and just said, "Hey, what are the four or what are some of the defenses in order to defeat a creditor's claim?" And she spit out the exact 4 things I needed. I read through them. The statute was listed. Okay, and then I was good to go. So quick, plain
yeah.
language, providing a real-time response and then, using it. I was ready to go for that hearing, so.
Yeah, I was I was watching TikTok yesterday. Who knows how long we're gonna have that? They're set to go, be banned in the States in January 19th, I think it is. And there's really no signs that's going to, be averted.
Yeah.
But, one of the author one of the one of this lady on a video was talking about, "Oh, you don't need to pay your medical bills." She's like, "All you gotta do is, claim that it's a HIPAA violation to" and there may be some health attorney out there that can prove me wrong, but, she's like, "All you gotta do is claim it's a HIPAA violation, and then the collections agency will leave you alone," which may or may not be true, I don't know. But I was curious, like, is
Probably
it
not
actually
true, but yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Is it actually a HIPAA violation?" Like, they might leave you alone, I don't know, as a practical matter, but as a legal matter, I was curious, is it a HIPAA violation for a healthcare provider to give? And so I, of course, ran it over to ChatGPT, and I turned on the little search bubble, and I was like, "Can you answer this question for me?" And it pulled all the relevant health regulations, and, like, what I was really impressed by is it pulled, like, the definition statute too, like, all the collateral stuff that it used to miss, like, a year ago. It pulled the exact regulation that addressed, sharing of PHI for the purpose of collections and, like, 2 other related statutes that dealt with collections, and then the definition statute that it incorporated in, and it's like, "Yeah, based on this and this and this, I think that it is probably, a permissible, release of PHI to hire a collections agency." And I was just in 3 seconds, I got what appeared to be, and I read through the statutes and regulations and kind of was like, is this actually is this hallucinating? Is this real? It appeared to be correctly citing all the, I mean, there's probably more context, but in half a second, I got what appeared to be an accurate answer on a
Uh,
complicated legal question.
it's very good at appearing to be the answer,
Yeah,
right?
that's
It's the
the
difference
risk,
between
is it
true
appears to
answer.
be. You gotta vet it, and I was careful to do that. But people are still messing that up. There was, I was reading an article a couple weeks ago. Some attorney in Texas got fined 2 grand for citing fake cases in his brief again.
I mean, it's not hard to, I mean, it's not hard to spend 5 minutes just making sure the cases are legit cases, right? And reading,
Yeah.
pulling it up and pulling them out. It's 5, 10 minutes. But I was on, I think, I don't know if it was Lawyer on the Beach or I was on, maybe it was on LinkedIn. I had made a post or commented on somebody else's post, right? And about, creating, a custom GPT that basically is, with the right training can significantly and almost entirely reduce hallucinations. And the accuracy level is extremely high, let's say 95% accurate. And like
Mhm.
the response was there was multiple people that were like laughing at my posts. Like there was like the little laughy face, like, haha, like, like it does exist, like
Mhm.
with the way AI is progressing and the way it's operating and, being able to put the guardrails up and all this different stuff. I mean, you have to be
Yeah.
extremely methodical about how you create, right?
Yeah.
The data you put in and the way you put it in. But I mean, it's you can get accuracy, and you
Yeah.
can significantly reduce, if not eliminate hallucinations with it with the right, guardrails.
Yeah. Well, and at the very least, you're radically expediting, that first, 4 hours of legal research or whatever it is. When you're
Sure.
on a complicated issue and you're getting started and you're like, all right, well, what are the basic cases I need to know? What are the concepts to assemble this issue? Especially if you're in like litigation, it's like the first time you've seen this weird issue of, that fact pattern. How does that play out?
Yeah.
And like even beginning to know what to search is sometimes, I remember, especially when I was a new attorney, like even beginning to know what to search was sometimes, I didn't even know what the terms of art were, on the issue. And I found it to be incredibly helpful in thinking through those sorts of things. But really excited to see how, I don't know if I don't know if custom GPTs are open to O1 yet. But I'm really excited to see whether it follows instructions better. Like if you give it,
I would
uh,
assume that they're just progressing through the different models and then just applying the custom GPTs you built and then, back ending the most recent model. Because I know it was a 3 point Eleanor was a 3.5 before. And then once and then now it's the 4.0 model. So I would assume that they're gonna progress through and especially when they, at some point, basically combine all of the models into basically, the model, right? And then depending on what your prompt is, it pushes itself into one of the submodels, right, within the larger model.
yeah, yeah, we will, have to see where that goes, but it's definitely going to be, continue to be a significant thing. I mean, right now, I think, those are kind of the two main areas that I have felt most comfortable relying on AI is in automated workflows for more administrative tasks, like our mail system and stuff like that. And then, on the other hand, in the chat window for thinking hard about complicated things and, analyzing stuff that wouldn't make sense to run through an automation, but just need a brain dump and think more clearly. Sometimes it's like dump out your brain and it's like, please organize this for me. And
Yeah.
then it's like, all right, based on this, here's how we proceed. But it's moving so fast, and we're seeing a lot of countries, the EU, China are both enacting pretty sweeping, as I understand it, pretty sweeping um, regulatory regimes. And as far as I know, the United States has done basically nothing so far. And I don't know if that's good or bad. It's hard to say. I've gotten a lot more.
Just like the drones over New Jersey. If I have to read one more
Yeah,
article about the drones over New Jersey, I'm gonna lose it,
yeah.
Like
I started looking into that last night. I was like, "What is going on?" And with the little, I don't know if you saw the little pulsing ball things, or if that's related, or
I don't know.
pulse p- plasmoids or whatever. It's very, very interesting stuff. But I don't know what to make of any of it. I know there are things they're not telling us. I can tell you that. But
Well,
we'll
I wanna go back to something you just mentioned, and kind of like I've been thinking about this is, when it comes to, building out automations specifically with AI, you don't have to. I mean, it's okay to start with on that front end level of just using it to kind of get the process started, right? I mean, I feel
Yeah.
like sometimes people think that, and sometimes my brain goes in that direction, like, how do I fully automate this from end to end with AI, right? Well, that's not where you should start, right? You should start with, how do I use a custom GPT or just Chat GPT, right? Just the large model, right? And the open model is just simply use it to create prompts, or start to shorten a step in the process,
Mhm.
and then kind of, once that step is shortened and you're like, okay, can I shorten it more? Can I shorten it more? Can I fully automate it? Right? But that's like step 10 and not step one.
Yeah. Yeah, what I'm interested to see too is, um, how we start to integrate this into our existing, communication systems. Because we use for a while, I was using Slack, or we were using Slack at the firm. This is very powerful, probably the easiest way to do this. And, we've started using Google Chat now, uh, just because 'cause we're already paying for it. But how do you guys handle, like, internal communications?
It's all done through Microsoft Teams. But yeah,
Gotcha.
we have our
Have you
Teams channels, and yeah.
Yeah, what I think was it I don't know if you could do it through the custom GPTs, but with, like, the assistance API, I've seen people, like, building Slack bots and Teams bots that you can actually communicate within your existing platform. Now you probably can't do stuff like upload files and all that, but in terms of just asking questions and getting answers, um, I'm hoping we'll see more of that too from a lot of these communications companies to be able to bolt these models into our chat systems, but I don't
Yeah.
know.
And so, I mean, that's the direction I would want to head when it comes to, um, you know the whole building out a custom GPT and then eventually working it into your communications platform with your team, right? So they ask a question, "Oh, do we need this question?" And then maybe there's an automated response that I can click send that the GPT has created the answer to that is the right answer, right? Or it's, here's a potential solution, right, from the GPT, and then it's like, "Oh, yeah, like, good to go on this one," right? And then so it's less of me having to type out an answer, kind of what I talked about with case status. I was just on a call with case status people last week, and, we were talking about their predictive answer for, their AI predictive answering for their client questions, and it's active, and we use it. It's pretty fantastic. But I was asking, how are they getting all that data? Well, it's like they're basically pulling data from, like, all of your prior answers in cases on the platform. It all goes into, like, their kind of predictive model on, predicting future answers, and how you've answered certain questions, tone you've used in prior questions. I think it pulls in even we'll go to your website and scrape information from your website and pull that in,
Hmm.
as well. So, like, pretty cool stuff happening when it comes to the AI responses. But, I think that would be awesome to have, in your internal system to be able to, like I said, not replace you as the lawyer, but at least supplement you and make things faster and easier when it comes to answering internal questions.
So a lot of this, we're fairly techie dudes and very interested in this stuff. Like, um, what I'm curious about is like how do we get, you know, teams of people to adopt these kind of things? Do you have any thoughts on like training or conveying this information to team and in getting like people using Eleanor more and stuff like that? Have you put much thought into that yet, or are we before the ball on that one?
No, I think we're there. I mean, once I launched it kind of internally, I mean, it's live and everybody uses it for different tasks, but I think it's all about just kind of wading in the water, right? And seeing, like, use Eleanor for this this really easy piece, right? And then it's, now I have, my intake specialist who does, a lot of social media stuff for me, who, when, um, behind the scenes when it comes to creating new blog posts and stuff. Like, I trained her on it last week. Like, this is how you prompt it. This is what it's going to produce. This is what you should pull from it, and start using it to create new content, right? Whether it's for, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, right? When it comes to our Fritz Law page. So all
Yeah.
things probate, and, and then other team members in production will use it differently, right? They use it for, calculating statutory fees, or I'm training we're working on, like we talked about offline, we're working on a workflow for digesting, any sort of financial documents, and how to get that basically instead of having to go through and manually pull transactions into a court document, right, one by one, which is required in some cases, in a lot of cases, or at least, just to get the totals to bulk entry, right? You get the totals out and like, okay, let's summarize, let's combine these things. So now we're using, AI for that as well, and it's starting to get, really great on that point.
Yeah. I wanna try to see if I can tackle that maybe sometime this week, but yeah, I wanna look into using Make to, pull, submit a bank statement PDF through the API, and then ChatGPT through, you can do it through all of them, but ChatGPT already has the modules built, so you don't have to do custom API calling and stuff. You can, extract structured data, and then you can actually choose the output format. So, like, if you wanted to come out in plain text, you can do that, which is most of the time what you're doing. But you can also have it come out in arrays or array data. So it can extract like a whole bunch of items and extract, an array, or if for non-technical people, an array is just basically a data object that is a list of things. So it's like a singular block that is a list of, let's say, 50 line item transactions, and you can pull individual array items out if you want to. So it's not like a comma separated list or something where it's hard to work with. It's actual separate sub objects within the main array object. And you can manipulate that. So I'm curious if it would be able to accurately extract, let's say, 50 banks transactions and put them into an array that we could then pass easily into Google Sheets or something like that, and just dump it all output in one. Here's your, 50 time entries, and then have it do that for each PDF. Find the find the case, find the CSV, dump the file. That
See,
would be
I think
slick.
I think that, the case and the file and doing all that stuff is obviously doable and it works very well. But the problem is with that I was coming up with, and I spent probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 hours on this, or 10 hours last week on trying to build this workflow because it's a big priority for me. Um, but putting in the documents, I basically would redact the document in Adobe and then and then upload it into the O1 model, and then
Mhm.
ask it to do things. Ask it to pull all the transaction data out and then extract it into, export it into an Excel file. And so
Mm.
it would do that, but then it would be like the first page only. So it'd be like 5
Yeah.
transactions. And then I'd be like,
Uh,
no, you're short here. Let's do all the pages. Oh, okay. And they would do like 10. And then it would be
uh,
like, and then sometimes it would be blank, right? This is all the same exact prompt. So I was
huh.
having a really hard time. I don't know if it was an OCR issue, the way it was uploaded, but I mean, I would go in and redact and OCR it in Adobe before I uploaded it. I'm like, this is too many steps, right? So
Uh,
then I had this little AI button, in Adobe that was saying, hey, like try out Adobe's AI assistant. I'm like, okay, well, let's try this out. So I had a free trial of that, and it started actually pulling the transaction data out. Again,
mm,
it would pull like, just for a little context, we're not talking about like 5 bank statements. Okay, we're talking about over 185 transactions over a 2.5 year period. So when I'm
yeah.
building stuff, I like to start with the worst case scenario, and then know that it'll do the simplest case scenario, right? So,
Uh,
but then, within Adobe, I was able to actually get it, to do it was in 3 chunks. So it would scan the document, and then it would give me like a third of it, and I'd be like, "Keep going." It would do the next third, "Keep going," the next third, and then I just cut and pasted that into a Word file or another file, and then cut and pasted that complete data set into ChatGPT, and then had it export um, into an Excel file that had, you want an Excel file that has 3 columns, basically that mirrors our form within the probate courts, right? And so then
right.
it export that, and then I can just say see Exhibit A on my court form, which will then be an Excel file that mirrors the transaction data that's required to the courts. Um,
Interesting. I wonder why it's being why I was being so finicky about that. I wonder if there's I'm curious to get in there and explore it myself just to, I don't know. That's annoying that it wasn't just like grabbing them right out. And who knows, a lot of these technologies are still young and getting better, so it could just be one of those things where need a little more We need to be a little wait a couple more months until some radical new advancement has occurred. That seems to be the pace that we're working at right now. So
Well, I mean, I looked up the Adobe, assistant, basically, it's the 4.0 model layered onto whatever your document is, so,
yeah.
really cool, though, because then I can pull it in and can say, I basically would just I'd pull up click the edit button, redact, I'd find the account number on there, and then just enter it in. It would find it throughout the entire document, OCR it, and then redact out that account number, so then I'm good on there. Pull up the assistant, have it scan it. It takes like, 60 seconds to scan how big of it depends on how big your document is. And then you can ask it questions too, like, hey, how many deposits were there? What were the total deposits? List them out. And then give me the totals.
Mm,
So I could be having my other screen on my other computer screen where it has, the court form, and I'm just going deposits. I'm doing bulk entries for, where it's not required to do itemized, right? And it's just super quick and easy way to digest all that information.
mm,
From what I could tell, it was very accurate. I mean, if it missed
mm.
you still have to do your checks and balances on stuff and go like, "Okay, hey, let's just scan through this real quick to make sure things add up," right? But, I think maybe it missed one item or 2 items out of like 175 that scan, so
Wow. Wow. Yeah, and it may be worth, checking Claude too in Anthropic. I know some people have I haven't used it a whole lot for that use case, but I know some people have said that, it can be a little stronger on extracting structured data out of text and documents. We get a nice assortment of things to choose from these days, and figuring out who is best at what right now. But
well, I know the O1 model, has little buttons on the bottom. We talked about that last episode, where you can actually ask it to do something by, kinda give it a lens to look through, right? If you're extracting data and you're about to enter a data extraction command or a prompt, simply click
mm,
that button, and then it kinda puts it in that data extraction mode, as opposed to a general mode that then has to, like, kind of, narrow down its purview when it comes to the actual production or the analysis.
yeah, it is interesting because a lot of people forget that that's kind of how those systems work. It's this concept called latent space in an LLM, basically, where you have kind of this sea of uh, semantic data out there that is all related through complex mathematical equations. Whether a word is connected to another word is based on its mathematical representation. And when you submit a prompt, I've heard it described that kind of what's happening is you're like casting out a lure or sending a beacon out through this kind of empty vacuum of mostly empty vacuum of connected data points. And whichever things are kind of nearby when it's kind of sending out that probe, those are the words that are going to be kind of swept in and assigned probabilities as to how likely they are to be the responsive token to that query, because that's kind of how it works. Is it'll generate whatever is the next most likely token after this one, and so it raises these interesting, and that's why those contextualizing pre-framing prompts help, because there's this enormous volume of training data out there that unless you give it some grounding about what it is, who it is, what its role is here, like it could be sending that probe out in any
Any
number of
direction,
different
yeah.
directions. And by giving it that clarity, you're saying, all right, this is we're not sending the probe, due north, we're sending it northwest. And I need you to pull everything from that general area. You know what I mean? So it helps to kind of frame that scope. And that's why that works, is because of this bizarre concept of latent space. Um,
Well, and
I barely understand it myself, but
I think that
it's
was a really good
very interesting.
explanation of it. I think most people, when it comes to, getting responses, I kinda feel like you know, eh, it's almost like the user's response. It's the user error when it comes to, the model, when it comes to, like, hallucinations and kind of wrongful I think it's all based upon the prompt, right? I mean, and not in some of these models, like I said, no matter what the prompt is, they're still gonna hallucinate because they can't find the right answer fast enough, and so they just find something close enough. But I think that if you're not even building a custom GPT, you're just using the O1 model, it's like, really work on your prompting, and, like, once you get a good prompt for that particular search query on that setup, and maybe all you're doing is introducing a new fact pattern, like a, general fact pattern that relates to your specific case. Um, save those prompts, right? Save those prompts, and that's what I've been doing. I've been, like, building out my workflows, and I'm like and for my team members and going, "Okay, this is the exact prompt to use." So it's not like a question. I've already tested this prompt. I know it works. I know it produces the desired result 100% of the times, right? And then I put it in my little workflow. Okay, go into Adobe, redact the account number, OCR it is step 2, and then, use the AI assistant in order to, extract the transactions, cut and paste those into another file to, basically due diligence, make sure that all the data is accurate, it's all structured properly, there's no, issues. Put it into, the O1 model and have it produce it in an Excel file, but my prompt is always the exact same. So, like, having that uniformity throughout the process, especially when using the AI, if you have that uniformity when it comes to the prompt, it's gonna produce very close to the same result each time, without it and if you
Mm.
tweak the prompt barely, maybe use a different word, maybe use extract or as opposed to some other language, then you potentially could get different results. And you may even get different results with the same prompt, but they're gonna be kind of close to the bullseye, right? They're gonna be around that kind of, 6-inch spread around the bullseye as opposed to being, out of left field.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely, valuable to save functional prompts, and depending on how you're doing it, like, when we're using those prompts through, like, automated workflows, like, I guess they're the same by definition because they're working through an automated flow, so they can't be changed unless you go in and
Yeah.
alter the wiring. But that's where it comes into, if you're getting inputs you don't like, especially in automated flows, um, you know, continually going back to the prompt in your step. I mean, if it's an extract structured data step or a chat completion or whatever it is, going back and saying, all right, why did this misfire? Like, what language did I put in here that caused it to produce this dumb output? And working through that. And most of the time, just by like correcting the language, you can fix the problem. At least I've
Yeah.
found. And sometimes you can introduce new problems. Like we were working on a calendaring automation bot thing for someone, and he wanted to have it where if the event was marked as canceled, that the system would go through and delete the Google Calendar event from the calendar. Um, and we didn't have a way of tracking canceled. All we had was, we had a rescheduling system that could check if there was an existing date and a future date. But we didn't have a good answer for, well, what if it's canceled?
Yeah.
And so I just put in a piece of the prompt. I told her, well, if you notice that it's canceled, just don't output anything. And the problem was then it would output nothing, or it would actually accidentally bleed together between two different things, and it would start outputting nothing on both of the date timers and stuff like that. And we're like, well, we can't. So kind of refining that and making sure that it's reliably outputting the same thing is just it's just part of it, part of working with intelligent machines. But once you get it right, it is it's nice. It's very nice.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely on all those points. One thing I wanted to mention, but, we're getting close to time here in a little bit, but, I wanted to talk really quickly about, using AI to in a sales capacity. So I've seen some people asking questions recently, and I've thought about it. I know that, we use Just Call. They actually have an AI assistant, and there that you pay a little bit more for the premium model that will analyze your calls. And I'm not happy with this. Their summaries are not great on Just Calls. I mean, the last Zoom one I had on the summary was ridiculously accurate. But the Just Call, when it comes to the script with the client, what are the next steps? Here's the summary. It's like 50%. You know what I mean? So when it comes to accuracy, so we're not
Mhm.
doing a whole lot with that. But I'm like, what are your thoughts on? And this is a direction I'm thinking about going in having some sort of AI layer into your sales call, like it can analyze like tone, like responsiveness, like give you insights on like why you're not on your sales conversions, right? How are you? This was a give it the data of, yeah, I did sign this case up or I did not sign this case up, and then it can analyze the how the call went itself.
Yeah, yeah. So I've got something similar. I was trying to build a system that would review all of our calls, and just extract, important information about it. Just general things like client sentiment, the questions they asked. One of the things was an analysis of, is there something we could add to our workflow, either automated or not automated, that would have prevented the need for this call, or
Hmm.
answered the question before it was asked, and things like that. And the interestingly, the trickiest piece that I have encountered is finding a reliable way of outputting the transcript. Like, our phone system will capture the transcript, but I'm having a little difficulty in getting it to output it in alternating format, like who's speaking at different times and stuff like that. But I know it can be done. So I think it's generally a great idea. Um, if your phone system is capturing transcripts, and their API will allow you to fetch that and push it into ChatGPT or whatever model you want to use. Um, yeah, I know Ben Glass is the one who tipped me off to this idea of doing that. And I think it's really, really powerful to have somebody monitoring essentially all your calls and rating them on performance. And did you cover these issues? How did you respond to these sorts of things? Now, I think those tools are going to get better. They're
Yeah.
they're probably decent now, but they're going to get better, because right now, one of the limitations, I think, is that if you're doing it through a more traditional means, and there may be tools that are like specifically designed for this, but if you're doing it through more like basic text analysis, um, I don't know if the models are yet as good at like detecting uh, sentiment and things like that as the like voice first models are. Like these truly multimodal versions that OpenAI and now Google have launched, where they're not based on transcribing text and then responding to the text. They're based on actually like direct voice to voice correspondence. Those models have a lot more native like understanding of emotion and like empathy and like vocal and tonal nuance that the text only models don't. So I think a lot of that is about to get a whole lot better, especially. And there may be ways to build it already that I just haven't invested the time in. But
Well,
um,
you have to think that having a voice analysis over a text analysis, I mean, you can't I don't know how you would determine, certain, vocal tones and when it comes to a pure transcript model.
yeah,
It would be probably a lot of guessing, right, when it comes to how the actual words came out, but no,
hmm
I agree with you. I mean, I think that we're in an early stage of it. It's I feel like people are coming out and they're, like, just call like, launch this, AI assistant because everybody wants to have it and, sales analyzer, but it's not a great product yet, right? It needs to go through a lot of iterations and a lot of updates in order to actually become accurate, you know? But I feel
yeah,
like people are pushing out stuff because they need to. They wanna be part of the AI boom, like, "Oh, we're" as opposed to, perfecting the model, actually having it really accurate. Like, I think Zoom is a great example, like, uh, you know, a year ago, I think Zoom probably launched, or 6 months ago, or whatever it was. It might even be before that. They launched their transcript. It was probably way
yeah,
before that. Could have been even like 4 years ago, who knows, right? Their transcript model, but I just never used it, and because it was not accurate. And now, like I said,
yeah,
like I had to use it. Somebody sent me a summary recently, and it was paragraphs and paragraphs about like you can do a super detailed summary, and it
yeah,
was spot on. I mean, like just unbelievable, like a 2-page report on the call and like how it went and like all this stuff. Like, but it was very, very accurate. And I think
yeah,
hopefully Just Call gets there, sooner or later, and I can use something that's native to the call system as opposed to having to export, call data or, transcripts or even recordings into another platform to then analyze it, right? And then produce something.
yeah. Yeah, I know, like, I picked up over last week, I picked up Fathom, because there was a lot of, hype around, Fathom, and it's basically a Zoom and Google Meet call recorder that AI analyzes, and I was curious, like, how it was performing, and it does extremely well. Like, they
Yeah.
have a bunch of predefined sets of prompts where, depending on how you want it to be analyzed, like, if you want it to be analyzed for just general summary and action items, it'll extract out, like, tasks and put them in a little checkbox format for you, and each extracted, like, summary item, it will hyperlink you directly to that point in the video, which is kinda neat. Um but they do have, like, predefined system prompts for sales calls. Like, "Hey, this was a sales call. Here's how I want you to analyze it." And you can also, of course, write your own. Um, so at least for Zoom and, like, web calls, I think we've got some stuff there that's working pretty well. But for, like, you and I who we do some Zoom probate consults, but most of
Yeah.
them are over the phone, just due to the nature of the type of client. Um And so getting a call tool that is not that you don't have to build yourself is
Yeah.
part of it. Really, that kind of stuff, in my opinion, should be built into your voice over IP system. Like, they're
Yeah.
well equipped to be able to do this, and I'm sure OpenPhone, which is who we use, is going to be launching that soon because they've been driving hard on the call summaries, AI call summaries, AI transcripts, and all that. And that stuff is working very, very well. It's just going to be going the next step and making that stuff even more useful. So pretty stoked
Absolutely.
about it.
Well, I think we're getting a little bit closer to time here. So, if you want to, what do you got for your tip or your tech tip of the week or the episode?
Yeah, I would say, if you're a Google Workspace user, just play around with Gemini if you haven't yet. I think you get a free trial, or I don't even know if they're baking a certain amount of usage in for free, but really cool things you can do and play around with. And don't ask Gemini what it can do because it doesn't recognize its own capabilities. Like, if you say, like, what can you do? Can you access my documents? It'll be like, nope, can't access your documents. That stuff's secure. And then if you say, like, hey, find this document, it's like, okay, here's your document.
It's very
So
humble. It's very humble
yes, it's
on its
very
capabilities.
yeah. So but play around with it and go on, read an article online or something about what you can do. But finding documents instantaneously based on their semantic meaning, which is just delightful. Like, rather than having to, oh well, I think that was in the Johnson case, and here it's in this file. Like, finding a pleading you were working on in a split second, or, sending an email, finding an email, uh, you know, manipulating data in your Google Sheets, creating formulas. Like, it basically lives in your Google Workspace now, which is pretty sweet. And I hope to see that continue to grow and be more and more useful as we go forward.
Awesome. Yeah. So mine's gonna be my tech tip's gonna be twofold. One, check out the assistant on Adobe. We talked about that. The AI assistant. If you're already playing Adobe, you're already paying for it. Start using it. Just play with it. There's a little free trial you can use to kind of see if it has a good use case for what you're trying to accomplish, as opposed to having to upload and then deal with maybe the ChatGPT not recognizing the PDF or analyzing as well from that capability. And then the second part is just simply, we're at the year end. This is gonna be my theme for the rest of the year is, take a look at your tech stack, take a look at specifically, this week we talked we had a meeting about task flows, like, and I saw a couple of my team members light up. We talked about maybe either eliminating or organizing, just doing a task flow review, because I think there's a lot of stuff that is a little bit duplicative, or getting the input from the actual people using it. Is this too many clicks? Right? Is this whatever process or technology you're using? Is it too many clicks? Is it too many steps? Is it not enough steps? What's the perfect workflow for the people that are actually using the product at the end of the day? Getting that input, making that tweak at the end of the year, and making things more streamlined for the start of 2025.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That you raised an interesting point about, is it not enough steps? Because sometimes we have a tendency toward trying to, if you get really into it, you have a tendency toward trying to automate everything to the extreme degree, and sometimes there's just too many variables, and it's just a lot easier to have a human person look at it and have an opinion on it. Like, my paralegal said, hey, can we get an auto task or something, 6 weeks prior to the closing of a supervised estate, to remind us to publish in the newspaper about closing. And I was like, well, maybe we could automate it all the way through and just auto send the publication to the correct newspaper prior to it. And we're like, wow. And she was like, wow, but sometimes there are cases where we don't want to send the publication, or we got a waiver, or we got all this other stuff. And I was like, well, I could have check boxes for all this crap. And it's like, well, it's just too complicated. Let's just
Yeah.
a task and let her use her judgment, and respect people's. And this is where there's that human and automation and AI synthesis coming back, and
Yep.
it's super powerful. But all right, guys, that's it for this week. If you enjoyed the show, check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and leave us a 5-star review so that others can find the show and benefit as well. If you want to take it offline, join us in the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group, where we talk more about automation, AI technology for lawyers all the time. Until next time, thanks again, John.
Always a pleasure, Dan. See you next week.
Take it easy.